Hi, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about a play that I finished, and the play is called Tartuffe. And this is written by the French playwright Molière. Now, if you know my channel, you know that when I watch a play, especially an older play like this one from the 1600s, I often like to follow the play with the text. I watched this on YouTube. Now, I had a text, I had an Everyman's Library, this book, and this is volume 2 of Moliere's play, and it has the play in here. Now, I'm going to talk a second about the text. And the version I watched is a Royal Shakespeare version, and this is found on YouTube from 1983. It's on this great YouTube channel, the Shakespeare Network, very highly rated. I rate this channel very highly because I've seen several productions of plays, Shakespeare plays, of course, on the Shakespeare channel here that I'm showing you. One thing I noticed when I started watching it was that the text, the words that the actors were saying were different than my text. So that became frustrating, and I kind of had to abandon my everyman's text. And then I put on the subtitles from the YouTube, and then I could follow it. But then I noticed that the words that the actors were using were kind of modern words and modern phrases, and so I said, this is not really the authentic version. And I wanted to know what would be about some information about the authentic version of the text. And then through some research on the chat GPTs, I found out that the original version is in couplets and it's rhyming. And so then I went online and I found several versions of the text, but they were different translations. But the one that I found that was couplets was on the Gutenberg. The Gutenberg version of this play looks to be the original version with couplets. And I could see the rhymes, and it was kind of interesting, but I had a conflict there. Was I going to watch? I prefer to watch the play, but then I also like to have the authentic text. But I decided to go with the play that I was watching on YouTube, and I proceeded to watch that version with the subtitles on YouTube. And it was very good, and I was very satisfied. But I still am interested in the poetic rhyming version, and if I watch this again, I may try to watch a version like that. I found one on YouTube, but I didn't like the way that the shots were made. It was kind of a stage production, and the actors were too far away from the camera. So I don't know. I'm going to keep looking for that in the future because I would like to compare the modern text to the authentic text. But anyway, and also I found out there's a Gerard Depardieu version, which I'm interested in seeing. But anyway, I like this version. I saw it, and the acting was just outstanding. It was the resolution wasn't quite good, but I went along with it. To talk about the play, it's called The Faker. And that's what Tartuffe is. He's a faker. He presents himself as a religious man and a great friend to Oberon. This turns out to be false and a lie. It moves along really well. It starts with this very funny scene. They're eating at a meal, and this older dowager woman gets angry at everybody at the table, and it's really hilarious scene. They start talking about Tartuffe. And then finally he enters, I think in the second scene or the third scene, he finally enters. And it was very unusual for me because there were at least 3 parts of the film where I laughed out loud. And I rarely laugh out loud at plays or films, but on this play I did, so I was very surprised. A lot of the comedy has to do with irony and people pretending to be one thing, and then another person pretending to be one thing, and then their two false selves are speaking to each other. And then there's a lot of a double meanings to all their statements, and it's just outstanding. I've never seen anything like it. I compliment Monsieur Molière on his observational powers and his ability to bring this type of social interaction out that we can all observe how this works. It was actually very real the way it happened. Now I'm going to do a little spoiling here of the story. Towards the end of the play, Molière gets in a real pickle. He writes everybody into a corner where it seems like there's no way to resolve this except either to make it, if he makes it proceed, it's going to have a very tragic and sad ending. You know, it was leading up to a very, very sad ending where there was no obvious way to resolve it. And a master storyteller could, solve this untenable problem. But the way that Molière did it was to use what they call like the God from the machine, where all at once this person comes in at the end and solves all the problems, and everybody walks away resolved in a happy mood. It works in the play, but as far as like kind of modern screenwriting and plays, it's a kind of a cheap resolution to the story. And I was kind of bothered by that. Who am I to criticize Molière? But it may be why this play is not better known, because of the way he ended it. I think if he had come with a better ending, this play would have really been a masterpiece. It would have risen to a higher level. But as it is, he had this policeman come in and solve the crime. He wasn't even in any other scenes, and all at once he comes in at the end and he solves everything. So it was just very. It broke the sense of illusion that had been created throughout the play. So as I read that, Molière, his plays were played in front of the King of France, Louis XIV. And, really Louis XIV is the only person who mattered in the audience. And so as this solves, the policeman who represents Louis XIV solves the whole play. And it was very flattering to Louis XIV. So I can see why Molière did it, because you just can't insult the guy. You gotta make him look good, but it does seem kind of unnecessary to flatter the king. But in a historical way, it shows you how much pressure was on these artists of the time. And when you look at art from these times in the past with monarchs, it explains why they represent certain subjects and don't represent other subjects. And so I think that historically that kind of adds a little bit to it and made that interesting to me. But if you've seen the play, tell me what you think. Do you think I'm right or wrong? Or do you think that I missed something that I should have seen? I hope you write that in the comments, and maybe we can have a discussion about this play. So thanks for watching.